Suantraí Íosa go Suantraí Íosa, where we're looking at the readings for tomorrow, Tuesday, the 3rd of October, the feast of Blessed Columba Marmion. Columba was born in Ireland just within 10 years of the end of the famine. And he became a priest of Dublin diocese and goes on to move on to become a Benedictine monk. And eventually he became a great abbot. But one of the things about him was it was obvious when you met him that he wasn't just talking about being transformed into Christ. He wasn't just writing about Christ being the life of the soul. He was on the journey himself. And that links into the reading tomorrow, Zechariah, that people will come to the believers and say, "Come, let us go and entreat the favor of the Lord and seek the Lord. I am going myself." And in those days, 10 men of nations of different languages will take a believer by the sleeve and say, "We want to go with you since we have learned that God is with you." And Columba was that. He was living the life of allowing Christ's grace to change him. That's my impression when I met St. John Paul II, that here was someone who was being transformed into Christ through prayer and suffering. Psalm 87 says, "On the holy mountain is God's city, cherished by the Lord." Everything that God does is love. He transforms us by grace. That is his love. It's when we begin to cooperate with the grace, recognizing it as a loving invitation, that his grace changes us. Our desire for change, he's empowering. And the gospel, Luke chapter 9, 51 to 56. Jesus is setting out for Jerusalem, and on the way, they encounter a Samaritan village. Now, there's a long history of hostility between the Samaritan people and the Jews, because when the Jews went into exile, the Samaritans were Jews who stayed behind and were seen as cooperators with the invader. They were not to be trusted. And they maintained an older style of Judaism, different from what the returning Jews brought with them from Babylon. And so there was this barrier, this misunderstanding, profound and deep, between these two groups of people. They refused to make Jesus and his Jews welcome. And the reaction of the disciples is to want to call down fire from heaven to burn them up. And Jesus just rebukes them, and they go on to another village. Because again, Christ wants to change things to love. This gospel opens up with the phrase, Jesus is moving resolutely on the road for Jerusalem, where his loving sacrifice on Calvary will reveal the transforming grace of Christ to the world. Let us open our hearts, our minds, our souls through prayer and service and fasting to the grace of God. With thoughts such as these, let us go to our beds and let us pray. We shall indeed awaken in the morning with the praise of God on our hearts and on our lips. Agus gamana dia ilakoktik shiv, ahormak agus spirit nave, amen. Slán go fóill. Bye for now.